In the fading glow of Hollywood's golden age, one name stood above the rest, towering like a quiet monument carved from the American West itself. Gary Cooper, the man audiences believed they knew, the soft-spoken cowboy, the noble hero, the symbol of integrity in a town built on illusion. But behind the steady gaze, behind the calm voice and the gentlemanly charm, hid a truth he never dared speak aloud, a truth he carried like a secret wound. For decades, Hollywood whispered about the private life of Gary Cooper, rumors buried in locked diaries, unfinished letters, and conversations that vanished into smoke-filled rooms. Rumors of passion, of betrayal, of men he loved and men he grew to despise. And according to an alleged memoir draft discovered after his death, Cooper himself wrote a list of 7 actors he once shared intimate connections with, men he later resented, mistrusted, or even hated. This is not the Gary Cooper the world remembers. This is the Gary Cooper he tried his entire life to hide. Tonight, we open that locked trunk. We enter the silent spaces between the myths, and we reveal the 7 most evil actors. The 7 men Cooper believed had wronged him, used him, or broken him in ways the public never saw. This is the Hollywood he never wanted you to know. Before the scandals, the whispered rumors, and the 7 names that would haunt his final years. Gary Cooper began life far from Hollywood's shimmering lights. He was born Frank James Cooper on May 7, 1901, in Helena, Montana, a rugged land of wide, open skies and harsh winters that shaped both his body and his spirit. His father, Charles Henry Cooper, was not just a man of the law. He served as a justice on the Montana Supreme Court, stern, principled, and unwavering. His mother, Alice Cooper, was everything his father was not: refined, educated, cultured, a woman who carried England's sophistication deep in her bones. Their son grew up between these 2 extremes, the rigid demands of duty and the soft encouragement of intellect and grace. On the family ranch, young Frank learned to ride before he could properly read. He rode horses across endless prairies, chased cattle through dust storms, and absorbed the quiet language of the land. These early days forged the stillness audiences would one day see in his eyes, that calm, unshakable presence that no director could ever teach. Montana didn't just raise him, it defined him. The solitude, the mountains, the wind carving through fields, all of it planted in him a deep independence and inner strength he would carry for the rest of his life. But his parents wanted more for their son. So as a teenager, he was sent across the world to England, studying at Dunstable Grammar School, where the discipline was strict and the cultural expectations even stricter. He was an American boy thrown into a British world of etiquette, Latin lessons, and cold stone halls. After World War I, he returned to the United States and enrolled at Grinnell College in Iowa. He dreamed of becoming a commercial illustrator. Quiet work, solitary work, the kind of life that made sense to him. But fate is rarely gentle. A car accident shattered that dream, injuring his leg and forcing him to abandon art school. With limited options and no clear direction, he drifted west to Los Angeles in the mid-1920s. He came searching for art jobs, but Hollywood found him first. There, among the chaos of booming silent films, he discovered a world where a man could reinvent himself, where a quiet cowboy from Montana could become something larger than life. He entered Hollywood not with ambition, but almost by accident. Yet destiny was already waiting for him. Hollywood in the 1920s was a restless creature, loud, young, hungry, and into that whirlwind stepped a tall, quiet man from Montana who never planned to become a star, yet seemed destined for it from the moment he appeared on a film set. Gary Cooper began at the bottom, a stunt rider, an extra, a faceless cowboy drifting across dusty silent westerns. But even in the background, something about him pulled the eye. His 6'3" frame, his calm endurance, his piercing yet gentle gaze. He didn't look like an actor trying to be noticed. He looked like a man simply existing, yet magnetic in his stillness. In 1926, everything changed. His brief performance in The Winning of Barbara Worth caught the attention of producers and critics alike. He said few words. He barely moved. But the screen seemed to breathe differently when he appeared. Hollywood, a place obsessed with noise, had finally discovered the power of silence, and Gary Cooper embodied it perfectly. As the silent era faded and the age of talkies arrived, many stars vanished overnight. Their voices cracked, their personas collapsed, but Cooper transitioned effortlessly. In The Virginian, 1929, one of the earliest successful talking westerns, he introduced the world to his signature style, soft-spoken, understated, deeply expressive. He didn't need theatrics. He didn't need bravado. Audiences believed him because he didn't perform. He simply was. Throughout the 1930s and 1940s, Cooper became Hollywood's moral compass, the man producers trusted when they needed a character who embodied goodness without pretending. In Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, 1936, he played a humble man confronting greed with gentle dignity, and the world fell in love with him all over again. Then came 1941, Sergeant York, a performance so honest, so human, that it earned Cooper his first Academy Award. He carried the entire film, not with fiery speeches, but with quiet conviction. He would show the same versatility in roles like The Pride of the Yankees, 1942, The Westerner, 1940, and dozens more that cemented him as the embodiment of the American everyman. But his most defining role arrived in 1952, High Noon, a film of tension, silence, and moral isolation. Cooper, as Marshal Will Kane, stood alone while an entire town turned its back on him. The performance was minimalistic, almost fragile, but in its restraint lay tremendous power. It earned Cooper his second Academy Award and positioned him as an icon of integrity during the politically charged McCarthy era. Yet even as his character showed unwavering resolve, the man behind them was beginning to fade. By the late 1950s, Cooper's health deteriorated. He continued working. Friendly Persuasion, 1956, The Hanging Tree, 1959, but quietly battled prostate cancer that spread to his lungs and bones. He told almost no one. He didn't want pity. He didn't want headlines. He simply kept going the way he always had. His final film, The Naked Edge, 1961, was released after his death, the end of a journey that has spanned more than 80 films and nearly 4 decades. Hollywood had created many legends, but none like Gary Cooper, the man who spoke softly, acted honestly, and carried an entire era on his shoulders without ever raising his voice. For all the noble heroes he portrayed on the screen, Gary Cooper's personal life was far more fragile, tangled, and human. Behind the calm smile that charmed millions, he carried wounds that never fully healed, many of them born inside the walls of his own home. In 1933, Cooper married Veronica Rocky Balfe, a woman of elegance and quiet strength. She came from New York high society, the niece of legendary MGM art director Cedric Gibbons. the man who helped design the Oscar statuette. Unlike Hollywood starlets who lived for the spotlight, Veronica possessed a gentle dignity, a sincerity that felt rare in that world of glittering deception. Her beauty was refined, understated, the kind that drew Cooper not with fire, but with peace. Their wedding captivated the press, two worlds merging, Hollywood glamour and East Coast aristocracy. Soon after, Veronica stepped away from acting, choosing family over fame, building a stable home where Cooper could retreat from Hollywood's chaos. In 1937, their daughter Maria was born, and for a time, Cooper seemed to find balance, a gentle life anchored by family, faith, and a sense of belonging. But under the surface, trouble slowly grew. Despite his gentlemanly image, Hollywood insiders whispered that Cooper was a notorious ladies' man, a man drawn to dangerous passion, secret romances, and forbidden temptations. And the most devastating of all was the affair that would nearly destroy his marriage. In 1949, on the set of The Fountainhead, Cooper met Patricia Neal, a talented actress more than 20 years his junior. What began as an on-set attraction deepened into a consuming, emotionally turbulent affair. Neal fell for him with the intensity of a young woman who believed in impossible love. She was willing to sacrifice everything, even her rising career, for a chance to be with him. Their relationship quickly became one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets. Producers whispered, co-stars pretended not to notice, photographers lingered longer than necessary. While the world adored Gary Cooper, Patricia Neal loved the man beneath the legend, flawed, conflicted, gentle, and restless. But the affair tore his life in two. Cooper wanted them both, the deep passion he felt with Neal and the stable life he had built with Veronica. But he feared divorce, not only because of his Catholic faith, but because of what it would do to young Maria, the daughter he adored more than anything. By 1951, the emotional strain became unbearable. Cooper moved out of the family home. He and Veronica separated, quietly, painfully, without scandalous headlines. They remained legally married, but their lives drifted apart. Yet even as he lived with Neal, Cooper refused to sever ties with his wife. Patricia was left in limbo, loving a man who loved her deeply yet would not choose her. The heartbreak consumed her, and she later described those years as some of the darkest of her life. Eventually, Cooper ended the affair, crushed by guilt and torn between desire and duty. He withdrew, struggling to confront the damage he had caused, and then, in 1955, after 4 years of painful distance, he quietly reconciled with Veronica. No cameras, no headlines, just two people, tired of hurting, choosing to rebuild what fame had nearly destroyed. In these later years, as illness slowly crept into his body, Cooper turned toward the Catholic faith of his wife and daughter, seeking peace, forgiveness, and perhaps redemption for the choices he had made. Veronica remained at his side until the end, caring for him with the steadiness of a woman who had loved him through both glory and betrayal. It was a love story without perfection, but with resilience, a story that mirrored the man himself, flawed, conflicted, but always reaching for dignity in the end. For decades, Gary Cooper was celebrated as Hollywood's quiet pillar of integrity, a man who carried himself with dignity even when the world around him dissolved into gossip and scandal. But in the shadows of his private life, a different story unfolded. According to whispered accounts and an alleged unfinished memoir draft found in a locked trunk At his Montana home, Cooper left behind something startling, a deeply personal, unsent confession, naming 7 actors with whom he allegedly shared secret relationships that ended in bitterness, betrayal, and resentment. These were not casual acquaintances. These were men he trusted, men he desired, men who shaped his private life in ways the public never imagined. And in his writings, he did not call them lovers. He called them the 7 most evil, not because they were villains, but because of the emotional destruction he believed they left behind. This is the dramatized reconstruction of that list. Marked Cary Grant, the pretender. Cary Grant, the epitome of suave elegance. To the world, he was sophistication incarnate. But to Cooper, according to the alleged notes, he became something far more complicated. Their connection reportedly began at a film festival in Palm Springs in the late 1930s. Cooper wrote that Grant laughed at everything I said, and it felt real until it didn't. The affair was secret, intense, glamorous, 2 of Hollywood's most iconic men drawn toward each other in a world where such attraction was unspeakable. But everything collapsed the day a gossip columnist reportedly spotted them together. Grant panicked. He ran, emotionally, physically, and completely. Cooper wrote, "He ran faster from me than any outlaw I ever played." What wounded him most wasn't the breakup, but Grant's refusal afterward to acknowledge anything had ever happened. A bond once tender became a source of humiliation, a memory Grant tried to erase, and Cooper could never forget. Rock Hudson, the illusion. When Cooper met Rock Hudson in the 1950s, the age gap was wide, but the attraction was instant. Hudson was young, statuesque, breathtakingly handsome, a Greek statue brought to life, but Hudson lived a double existence, 1 foot in Hollywood's spotlight, the other in complete secrecy. And according to Cooper's writings, that secrecy became a prison. Hudson would charm him passionately at night, then ignore him coldly in the morning. Cooper described it bitterly. A one-night stand stretched across a year. He began to see Hudson not as a man trapped by Hollywood's cruelty, but as a man hiding behind it. What started as tenderness unraveled into alienation, a slow, painful erosion of trust. 3. Randolph Scott. The rival Randolph Scott and Gary Cooper were both towering figures in the world of westerns, photographed together often, admired side by side, but behind the still photos lay a stormy rivalry. Scott had long been rumored to share an intimate bond with Cary Grant, and this created a triangle of jealousy and suspicion between the men. Cooper wrote of Scott, "He played me better than I played any role." Their relationship, passionate but tense, collapsed completely the day Scott landed a role Cooper desperately wanted. To Cooper, it wasn't just professional betrayal. "I didn't just lose a role," he wrote. "I lost a reason to trust." For Anthony Perkins, the projection. Anthony Perkins was shy, sensitive, brilliant, and haunted. The much younger psycho star entered Cooper's life like a reflection of his own lost innocence. Cooper was drawn to Perkins' vulnerability, his gentleness, his intellect, the qualities Hollywood often tried to crush. But the same fear that defined Perkins also destroyed their connection. Terrified of exposure, Perkins withdrew suddenly and completely. Cooper described the heartbreak. "He projected all his fear onto me and made me the villain." The bitterness didn't come from the ending, but from feeling used, not for fame, but for emotional survival. 5. Montgomery Clift, the mirror. Montgomery Clift, raw, tragic, beautifully broken. He may have been the lover who reflected Gary Cooper's deepest inner turmoil. Their alleged bond was intense, almost spiritual. Cooper wrote, "It felt like staring into a mirror that revealed every truth I tried to hide." But Cliffa's life was filled with trauma, addiction, and inner demons. Loving him meant drowning alongside him. Cooper captured the pain in one haunting line. "Loving Monty was like hugging barbed wire. You bleed, but you don't want to let go." Their relationship collapsed under the weight of their combined wounds, leaving Cooper with resentment, sorrow, and a reflection of the parts of himself he feared most. 6. Tab Hunter. The rebound. Tab Hunter, young and golden, entered Cooper's life at a time when he was desperately seeking comfort, not another emotional storm. But Hunter was on the rise, ambitious, eager, hungry. Cooper described him with a mix of desire and disdain. He was beautiful, but shallow. I needed healing. He wanted headlines. Their fling was brief, fleeting, and ended with a devastating accusation. Cooper believed Hunter had leaked details to the press, though proof never surfaced. Whether true or not, the damage was irreversible. 7. James Dean. The Fire. The final name on the list is the most shocking and the most tragic. James Dean, wild, rebellious, incandescent. A star whose flame burned too quickly to ever be contained. According to the alleged writings, Cooper described their bond as brief, wild, and charged with electricity. He was drawn to Dean's recklessness and repelled by it. Dean lived like the world owed him everything, and Cooper gave more than he should have. When Dean died in his fatal car crash in 1955, Cooper wrote one of the coldest, saddest lines of the entire list. "He robbed me of the chance to hate him in person." It was a confession of grief twisted into bitterness, a wound left open forever. In the end, the list wasn't about 7 evil men. It was about 7 regrets, 7 heartbreaks, 7 reflections of a life Gary Cooper was never allowed to live openly. Whether the writings were real or myth, embellished or truthful, they reveal a man carrying the unbearable weight of secrecy in an unforgiving era. A man who loved quietly, suffered silently, and left behind confessions that Hollywood was never meant to hear. By the dawn of the 1960s, the man who had once defined American masculinity, the soft-spoken cowboy, the noble hero, the quiet guardian of the silver screen, was fading. Gary Cooper, the icon millions adored, was fighting a battle none of them could see. He had always been private, almost painfully so. He never chased the spotlight outside of his work, and he certainly didn't want the world to know he was dying. But prostate cancer doesn't care about legends. It began quietly, spreading beyond its original site, creeping into his lungs, then into his bones. The illness shrank him, softened the sharp angles of his once rugged face, and dimmed the strength that had defined nearly 4 decades of Hollywood stardom. To friends, the transformation was heartbreaking. This was the man who stood alone in High Noon, the man who faced impossible roads in Sergeant York, the man who carried the dignity of an entire era. Now, even a standing took effort, yet through it all, Cooper displayed the same quiet resolve that made him a legend. No theatrics, no public breakdowns, just calm acceptance. The kind of courage that doesn't shout, but whispers. In his final months, he was surrounded not by crowds or cameras, but by the people who never loved the star, only the man. Veronica "Rocky" Balfe, the wife who had endured betrayal, reconciliation, and decades of emotional storms, remained faithfully at his side. She cared for him with unwavering devotion, the same quiet strength she had shown since the day they married. Their daughter, Maria, no longer the little girl he once carried on ranch horses in Montana, stayed close, cherishing every moment with the father she adored. As rumors of Cooper's illness eventually spread, tributes poured in from across the film industry. Friends, co-stars, and admirers sent messages of sorrow and gratitude. Even his close friend Ernest Hemingway, a man not easily moved, expressed deep grief at the looming loss of one of Hollywood's true originals. When Cooper passed away on May 13, 1961, at the age of 60, the world mourned the end of an era. Hollywood lost more than a star. It lost a symbol of integrity, restraint, humility, and strength. He was buried first at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, among other icons of the entertainment world. But Veronica, guided by love, faith, and a desire for peace, made a deeply personal decision. She arranged for Cooper's body to be moved quietly, reverently, to Sacred Heart Cemetery in Southampton, New York, a place far from Hollywood's relentless gaze, a place rooted in family, faith, and tranquility. There, under the soft shade of Long Island trees, Gary Cooper rests, not as a star, not as a scandal, not as a legend, but as a man, a husband, a father, a soul seeking quiet dignity in the end. His legacy, however, lives far beyond that peaceful cemetery. It lives in the films that continue to captivate new generations. It lives in the memories of those who knew him. Not the public hero, but the private, conflicted human being behind the myth. And it lives in the bittersweet truths revealed after his death, the struggles, the secrets, the regrets, and the love he never fully understood how to carry. Gary Cooper was more than Hollywood royalty. He was a reminder that even the greatest icons are made not of perfection, but of fragile humanity. In the end, Gary Cooper's life was not the spotless myth Hollywood wanted you to remember. It was far more human, far more fragile, and far more tragic. He was a man who carried grace on screen and hidden heartbreak behind closed doors. He gave the world heroes, men of courage, honor, and quiet strength, while privately wrestling with secrets he could never speak aloud. And when he left this world, he left behind not just legendary films, but questions, confessions, and a legacy shaped by love, regret, and the silent weight of being someone the world expected him to be. Perhaps that is why his story still haunts us, because in Gary Cooper, we see the truth that every legend, no matter how towering, is still human. Thank you for joining us as we stepped behind Hollywood's golden curtain into the places where fame and loneliness collide. If this story moved you, surprised you, or revealed a side of Gary Cooper you never knew, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. And to stay with us, because the stories of old Hollywood are far from over. There are more secrets, more confessions, more forgotten souls waiting to be heard. This is Vanished Hollywood, where the legends you thought you knew finally tell the truth.